Hi.
Hello.
Welcome, Jeff Dauler. Do I say from 1022 Productions? Like, who are we now, Jeff?
It's just
Jeez.
It's just 1022. The company was very hippily named 1022 Projects. I don't know why. And then we got rid of the projects and it became 1022 Podcasts. So now it's just like 1022. But we stylize it. 1022 is all lowercase to retain some of the hipness.
So hip. Where did it even come from? 1022.
It's our anniversary date, October 22nd. And so the company is my wife and I. So it just seemed, I don't know, cool.
Yes. The we you're referring to is your wife.
Yeah.
She is your other half, Callie, correct? And you have two daughters.
We do. We have Ellie, who is 4 and the best thing ever, and Olivia, who is 10 months, who is also the best thing ever. We have a dog named Sadie.
And so together, you guys are handling all the things together. Do you find that hard to do everything together?
Here is my kind of current platform or whatever. I think I'm not a fan of the phrase work-life balance, because when people use it, they're using it as like they're looking at 24 hours, right? So they're like, oh, if you're at the office all day and you're working so hard, you can't, have your phone out at dinner, or you got to have family time before bed. And I think that's the wrong way to approach work-life balance. I think work-life balance should be measured in like multiples of years, right? So it is hard because we have 2 little kids, and it would be great to have that day-to-day balance where we're all having dinner together at the table, whatever. But sometimes there's just, when you work on a growing business, there's sometimes when stuff just has to get done and things just have to happen. And sometimes it's going to happen during dinner. Sometimes it's going to happen at bedtime. Sometimes it's going to happen in the middle of the night, meaning you're tired the next day. But what I'm choosing to believe is that the balance is going to come over the course of maybe the next half dozen years, right? So the work part is right now, which I think I would rather have when the kids are really young. So this is the work part. And then the life part will be easier 3 years from now. And if it's not, then we've done something wrong and we have to pivot. So yes, it's really difficult and it's really tough working when mom and dad both work for the same company, because when there's a crisis, we're both dealing with it. And when it's our company, but it's also really great. Like Ellie, we got to think about Ellie's Christmas concert, or whatever it's called, where the kids are going to sing Christmas carols to everybody. And we didn't have to negotiate who got to go to it, or if anybody had PTO, or who could work the morning if somebody else worked the afternoon. None of that. We just said, oh, it's on December, whatever the date is at this time, let's go. And so that part's really cool. So is it difficult? Yes. Is it also the best thing ever? Also, yes.
I think that's the best part of being a business owner. I mean, you and I have a radio background. Callie and I have a live TV background, right? And both of those things you can't just take off. Right. You can't just go do the thing. It was actually frowned upon, right? We had to, when it was downtime or when we were on hiatus, then maybe you can take a trip. And now being a business owner, you're in charge of your own time. And I love that. That's the best part. Even though we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm still in charge of my own time.
But it's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for our own thing, right? And doesn't that feel so much better? I'm sure you have people who were affected. Was it like maybe 2 weeks ago when iHeart, one of the big radio companies, did their annual holiday reduction in force? Yeah, where they just come in and, people are saying, this is the worst one ever, where they just go in. And we always hear about the programming side, right? The talent, like the hosts and the producers who lose their jobs. But there's also salespeople and, traffic personnel and admins and all the other people who make a radio station run, who all lose their jobs because there's a business that's not making as much money as it to support them, right? And that's not their fault. And that's kind of the best part about working for yourself. If this doesn't work, like, it's my fault. And I think that's a better story to tell my daughters. Hey, I worked really hard at something and I didn't succeed. Here are the lessons I learned, as opposed to, hey, I worked really hard at something and then somebody in a different state decided that that the company wasn't making enough money. So, like, how do you explain that to a kid? You know what I mean? Like, you can work your tail off.
I also think it's hard. And you know this, I also think it's hard working for a company and putting 150% into something, and then you're just a number really at the end. And it's like, oh crap, wait, what?
Because the only people, and I don't think this applies just to radio, I think it applies everywhere, is you go above and beyond, right, to impress the people who are in your orbit, like who are right here. But those people have no say on whether or not you get to keep your job. So whether you work at a radio station and the general manager and the program director and the sales manager and the talent, if you're a producer and the talent you work with, everybody could love you, right? And kiss you on the lips at the end of every show. But if somebody in New York says, hey, I kind of joke, it might be true, but I just feel like every year they get a spreadsheet out and they're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fired. It doesn't matter what your contributions are to the company. They just got to make a change. And if you're the lucky number 7, you're out of a gig. It sucks. And it's I think it's the same way. It's Subway restaurants and airlines and radio media companies. It sucks.
So what advice do you have for people that have left radio or have gotten fired from radio? Because when I left radio, you were one of the first people I called. I ran away to LA, lived in a trailer in my husband's cousin's driveway with my daughter. I decided it was COVID.
That was so weird.
Weird, but like amazing. It's such a great story. I can't wait to write about it. But I decided I was going to focus on my daughter. I had always, for the beginning of time, focused on my job and wanted to make something happened for her that she had dreamed about. And you were the first person I called of like, wait, I think I want to do this podcast thing. Where do I even start? What advice do you have for people that are leaving their jobs or are getting fired? And how can they parlay that into a podcast? Or should they do it now before that even happens?
Yeah, I'll answer this in 2 parts. So the first part is kind of what I did and the advice that I would give to anybody who's still employed. And it doesn't matter if you're working for media, like radio or TV, or working for an airline or working for Subway or whatever, right? If you want something else, if you want something more and you know that you're destined for it, right? Maybe you're burned out at whatever you do, or maybe you just took a job to pay the bills and then you know how it is. You get in there, you get comfortable, right? It just, just keep paying the bills and there's never a way to break free. I got this advice from a lunch with the comedian Jeff Foxworthy. It was so random, but he and I ran into each other at an event, and I can't remember who invited who, but it was just a random like, hey, we should have lunch. We're both in Atlanta. And so we end up sitting on a patio at this burger restaurant. And I told him at the time I was working on a very successful radio show in Atlanta. It had been syndicated to a bunch of markets. Things were going really well. I was making a crazy amount of money. The job was insanely easy, right? Like we were doing really well. The show was successful enough that as a producer, anything I needed was one phone call away. And I just said to him, I said, I'm not fulfilled. Like, I don't want the rest of my life to be cheesy radio bits and gimmicks and pop culture takes on important news stories. I feel like there's more out there, but how do I walk away from something that is successful, that I had a hand in building, that pays me a ton of money, and in the whole scope of things is pretty effortless, right? I had been doing it long enough and we had enough success that it wasn't a tough job. And he said, somehow we got on the topic of stand-up comedy, and that I had done that long in the past, and I would like to, do that again. I liked the creativity of it and the challenge of it. And he said, why don't you pursue that or pursue something and start treating your full-time job as the side hustle? That's going to keep you, that's going to keep you in benefits, right? So you get a cavity, you get it filled, you get a headache, you can go to the doctor, every 2 weeks, you get a certain amount of money in your bank account, guaranteed. Start treating that though, like your side hustle, because you can do it on autopilot, and start pursuing something that's not going to pay you as much money with the same enthusiasm as if it were your full-time must succeed. I'm going to get fired next week if I don't meet quota job. And so I did that. And that's the advice that I give to anyone, is find whatever it is that you want to do next and use the full-time employment that you have as your insurance policy, and start chasing what it is you want next, and do it smartly and practically. Because if you wait until you've lost your job, you're going to be panicked, desperate, looking for money, needing your benefits, figuring out if you need to move. Oh my God, can I break this lease? I can't afford this apartment anymore. All that stuff. Without that noise, chase it, whatever it is. So I posted something last week, kind of an open letter to all those iHeart employees who got canned. And I said, look, this sucks, but you have so many gifts and so many talents as a radio personality that you don't, number one, you don't recognize them. Number two, you don't realize how valuable they are in the open market. Start pitching them and promoting them now, and be creative about your approach. And there is a lot more money and a lot more stability in the world outside of radio than there was in radio. So that's part one.
1,000%. That's beautiful.
And then the part two of that
was so good. Like, it was it was so succinct and so perfect. And it was like valuable advice that, like, yes, I can actually do this now. So if you guys aren't following Jeff, like, go follow Jeff's page, and like king of LinkedIn too, by the way.
I'm trying.
Get into that in a minute.
LinkedIn's tough, but that's my answer. If you already have a gig, if you've gotten cut, right? If you're already gone and you're already out there, then I would say the first thing I would do is ask someone else to help you identify your talents, especially radio people. But like I said, it doesn't matter if you work for an airline or a sandwich shop. Ask somebody else what your talents are, and to help build you up. Because when you become really good at something, you tend to forget the skill that goes into using those muscles, right? So you have to, and depending on your role at whatever company you had, part of your job might be humility. Part of your job might be background. Part of your job might be to let someone else be the star. And if that's the case, you got to lean on other people to say, hey, what am I really good at? And you'd be shocked. I'll tell you, if you're a radio personality, here's something you're really good at: talking to the public. I don't care if you are or aren't. You did it, which means there is somebody in your city right now who wants to start doing Instagram lives or LinkedIn videos or some other form of content creation that doesn't even know how to look into a camera, who doesn't even know how to take a long-winded thought and edit it for brevity and clarity. You do, because you've been doing it for X number of years. They will pay you to teach them what you seem to think is I was just born, I just know how to do it talent. It's not. You learned that, and you have a skill that somebody else doesn't have. You can sell that skill. So that's my advice. If you've already gotten fired, is to have somebody talk to somebody in great detail about what you did in radio or TV or wherever, and have them translate that, look at how that might translate into the real world.
Well, and that's what I was doing. I was side hustling, doing all this content creation stuff, helping other people doing the thing. And I was like, well, maybe I can parlay this into something full time, which I have. And then I decided, because I was always behind the scenes, right? As a producer, we're always propping everybody else up. I decided to turn the camera on myself and start doing the thing that I was good at, which is talking to people.
Right.
Bill Getty, who was the executive producer with Barbara Walters of The View and the Barbara Walters specials, always said, find something you're good at and double down on it. And I was like, I'm actually really good at communicating with people, the art of communication. And I think the hardest part was then turning the camera on myself, because I don't want to say trauma from being in TV and behind the scenes. It's not trauma. It's just you're so used to making other people the star that when suddenly it's you, I had a really hard time getting over that hump. It actually took me 2 years to start being able to just talk on camera, which is crazy to me.
This is super niche because it just applies to media producers, but I think it's important because there might be somebody who hears this in a completely different industry and says, oh, that's my job too. But when you're a producer or any sort of co-host or any sort of ancillary person to a star, if you're good at your job, it becomes second nature to make sure that the star remains the star, right? And it becomes like being left-handed or right-handed. You don't think of what hand to use to pick up a pen. You just know. So even when you're communicating, whether it was on The View or on one of the radio shows that you were a part of or whatever, in the back of your mind, even off camera, if somebody came and communicated something to you, your job was to make the women of The View look great, right? Specifically, weren't you specifically Barbara Walters' right hand?
Yeah, it was one of her producers. Yeah.
So your job was, no matter it, you could have been walking to your car and somebody asked you a question, you instinctively run it through a filter. How will this make my talent look, feel, and be perceived, right? If you're going to start talking for a living, communicating to other people, you got to find a way to turn that filter off, because now you're the star. And it's really, I struggle with it. And I did stand-up comedy. It's really, really tough to turn that filter off. And so if you've been in a support role, this is how I think it might permeate beyond radio, right? Or media. If you've been in a support role for your whole life, maybe you're an executive assistant to somebody. Maybe you're a partner in a business. Maybe you're the assistant manager to a manager. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe you've never had a job. Maybe you're a stay-at-home spouse and your partner has always had a career. That filter exists in the back of your mind. And if you're going to start talking to the camera and promoting your own crap, you got to find out a way to turn that off. And I wish I could tell you how, but it's hard. Really hard.
It's hard. That's where I'm at right now. It's we all talk about being authentic and authenticity. And I'm still trying to figure out how I can do that, because I constantly think about well, how would my client think about that if they saw this side of me?
Right.
What would a future client think of well, if she's a shit show and she's admitting a shit show, what does that mean for the stuff she's doing for me? So I'm having a really hard time being the authentic version of who I am at home, which is the brand I want to grow, versus who I am to my clients. And so I thought first I could show the merging of the two and the behind the scenes of the one that works with the other. But it's really hard to
because
show you both sides.
There are two sides. It's you. There's one side of it. Part of it is wearing a mask. That's what's tricky. That's the challenge.
Oh, God. Whew, we're chipping away at that mask slowly. I'm not 100% there yet.
Right.
Especially with ADHD. On an ADHD high, we can do all the things. And on a low, I'm leave me alone. Why did I agree to do any of this?
Right.
So it's navigating those challenges too.
Right.
And it really does relate to, you don't have to be in media. It could be in anything. I don't want my mom to know about this about me. I don't want my grandma to call me and be oh my God, I saw this viral video of you. What is really going on? I totally get that. When we take the mask off and we are our authentic selves, it is really hard. It is not easy.
And here's something to try, like here's a filter to try to apply when you're challenging yourself with this, is the people who have true success, for better or for worse, right, don't have a mask on. They don't. Like, there is no F's given about what the world thinks, because they are authentically who they are, right? Like, we're not going to go down a political road by any means, but there is nobody who questions who Donald Trump is. Like, he tells you, he shows you, and he backs it up. It is what it is. Like, there's no questioning that, and that's worked out well for him, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so but just keep that insanity level. I'm not saying Donald Trump's insane. Don't start messaging Rachel and saying political. I'm saying keep that insanity level, like that authenticity, that unfiltered, that level out there, put it out there as much as you can, because that's where the allegiances come from, right? That's where the real bonds come from, because I think people can see through the pretend or the attempt to merge. You know what I mean?
And I had that conversation with somebody this weekend. She used to do something on Facebook called Feel Good Fridays. And one day she wasn't feeling good, right? She would go live, Feel Good Fridays, fabulous. And she's like, I stopped going live because that day I just wasn't feeling good. I said, actually, that was the day you should have gone live.
Right.
That was the day you should have been like, okay, it's Feel Good Fridays. And you know what? I don't feel so fucking good today. And this is why.
Now, here's a question, Rachel. Had that been you, would you have given yourself that same advice? Or would you have said, well, I don't know if I should go live because I'm about to sign a new client and they said they really like Feel Good Fridays, so I don't want to go live and say that my kids are jerks today, right?
We're there right now. I'm in that juggernaut. I'm in that pipeline right now of like, I got over the fear of going on camera. Right. I'm getting over the fear of like, hey, if I have a thought and I just want to go live, just go live. I don't have makeup on. I'm wearing a sweatshirt today. Like, we're just going to do the thing. But to say what I'm really thinking, to say what's really here fully, I'm not 100% there yet. So like,
right.
Would I have taken my own advice? Probably yes, because I know it would have been good. Does that make sense? I know it would have been good content because if I'm not nothing, if not a good producer.
That's progress. That's progress though.
Right.
That's good.
Like, could I do that consistently? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's consistently showing you're up for yourself in that way and being, I hate the word authenticity because I feel like we're using it so much, and like storytelling, like those are the two words of 2024. But they're true, right?
Yeah.
Like being your authentic self, it may be scary, but it really is how you attract the right audience. And so I'm tiptoeing into that. I'm getting there. And I think for me, the hard thing was the community of followers that I had gathered were originally from radio.
Sure.
So people and I was very raw on the radio about my life because I was getting that paycheck, right? And that's what I was getting paid to do. So it was easy. But those same people follow me, I think, just to see my life, not engage and create a community and grow a community. So that's the other issue I'm having right now as a podcaster and as a creator is, how do I grow a community of people for where I am now? Not for the people that just want to spy on me. Like, literally had people text me like, oh, we're just watching you to see you fail. And instead of me being snarky and being like, great, I'm going to fail every day for you then. And for myself, because I learned from those failures, I stopped posting.
Well, that's
posting.
Right. And so this is where kind of my podcasting formula kicks in. And like when I'm helping people create podcasts and coaching them to create podcasts, if you want to start any sort of content creation, right, you have to start with who you want your audience to be. And then as long as they're authentic to you, right? So I can't build a community of college basketball fans, right? Because I don't pay attention to college basketball literally until the Final Four. And without fail, I'm shocked at all 4 teams. I'm like, oh, really? Cool. Even if one of the teams is Syracuse, which is where I went, I'm like, wow, good job, fellas. You know what I mean? So I can't build that community. So that part of, you have to have that authentic connection, but you find out, you start with authentically you, and then you figure out who that audience is, right? And then that's the only people you talk to and the only people you care about, right? So, and you have to be insanely authentic talking to those people, you know, and the only failures that you need to share are failures that are relevant to those people. It's actually it's almost a violation of trust. It's almost a betrayal to try to insert content in there that's not for them, because they didn't sign up to be a part of your community because they were expecting you to be all things to all people, right? They signed up for the community. Yeah. So that's where
we're at. I can't be all things to all people, and I have to double down on the community that I feel most welcomed by and authentic in, which is show moms with ADHD.
But is it like
straight up? Yes.
But that's like, here's what I would say to you. If we were working together, I would say, that's cool. But you know what? That's like me saying, oh, I just want to talk about college basketball, right? Like there's 100 and whatever teams that are going to, in contention, whatever. And like, that's a big, broad thing. Like, I would challenge you to drill down and get more and more and more and more specific. And I know this is kind of a, targeted, this is a different audience, maybe this podcast or whatever, but you could do shit show moms who have ADHD, who are trying to become content creators, and take it down one bit more.
Niche it down a little bit more. I agree.
Yeah. And then, because now you have a filter to put your failures and your successes on, right? Like shit show moms with ADHD, anything becomes content worthy, and nobody, spilling a glass of, dropping the milk carton in the morning is like, oh, look at me, I'm crazy. But when you say something like, I sketched out perhaps the funniest laugh out loud skit, and my husband agreed to do it, and my kid agreed to be in it, and we had to do it in the rain, and it was raining, and I just wasn't feeling it. I would watch that and go, oh my God, that's happened to me. I've done all the work. I'm ready. I got up early. I'm wearing my good black t-shirt. Let's go. But your mood isn't there and you can't do it, right? Then that's the bond. That's the insanely accurate bond that you can form to build a community. And don't be afraid to be too niche. You cannot be, there's a gazillion, majillion, bazillion people in the world. I promise you there are people like you.
Let's drill down to the fear of that, of niching down to how to be a content creator, right? Now I'm teaching people how to do what I'm doing, and now I'm showing them how to do the thing, and now that's competition. That's the fear. I'm literally giving you the playbook on how to do the thing and creating people to compete with me.
You don't think Kobe Bryant ever taught somebody else how to shoot a basket?
I know, because nobody else is me. And that's what I would tell my client if I was talking to a client. Well, nobody else is you, though.
Right.
So now go tell me, give me a Jeff thing.
There's a guy. I got to look him up so I can give him credit. But I talk about this. I don't know why I always forget his name.
It's almost like coaches that coach coaches to coach coaches. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, you sound high.
You don't know. There's coaches that coach coaches to coach other coaches. That's a thing. So it's like being a creator, teaching other creators how to create. And then we're in a creator economy and now it's oversaturated. So then how does the cream rise to the top? Well, I'm the fucking cream rising to the top. I have to believe that.
I'm sorry. I checked out. So you creamed a coach? You're a Coach creamer? What? Okay.
Okay. Wait for me to stop coughing so we can get this clean clip from you looking at us up on Google.
Asthmatic, ADHD, content creator, shit show moms. That's you right now. Wheezing over there. Okay. So it's a comedian named Bill Hicks. And he has this thing called the Principles of Comedy. When I was doing stand-up comedy, one of the clubs that I used to go to pretty regularly to kind of, test out material and stuff had this poster in the back. And then when I had my radio show where I got to be the host of the show, I had it hanging in my office. And I'll tell you a couple of them, and then I'll tell you number one because it's the most important. Number 7 on the list is write what entertains you. If you can't be funny, be interesting. You haven't lost the crowd. You do have something to say. Just do it in a funny way. So whatever your niche is, right? Drill down on it because that is a bottomless well of content. If your niche if you're too generic and you're too all over the place, then you can't drill down on the nuances of what's funny and entertaining. And then you've got to fall back on stuff like, oh, I forgot to take the groceries out of the car and they all went bad. You know what I mean? Like, bleh.
Read the first part of that again, because I want to talk to that.
Write what entertains you. And if you
and that's what I always say. I'm my own biggest fan. Like I create things that I want to see because I think it's interesting.
Right.
And so I love that because that's what I tell everybody. Just do what entertains yourself, what entertains you.
Another
what's next?
Number 10 on his list is play to the top of the intelligence of the room. Right. So don't try to dumb stuff down so that, I got to simplify this so everybody can understand it. People will catch up. Right. And this is kind of specific for podcasting. I tell podcasters who are nervous about like organizing and sorting their show and getting from topic to topic to listen to stand-up comedians. Okay. Because when you're listening to a stand-up comic, the stand-up comic never does a bunch of funny, whatever political jokes. It goes, ha, 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 the election, ha, ha, whatever. And everybody laughs and then says, okay, enough about the election. Let me tell you about my brother-in-law, right? And then goes and does that. They just say, whatever, ha, 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 well, we'll count that vote. And then the whole crowd laughs. And then he says, my brother-in-law was at a picnic with 2 cousins and his hair caught on fire. And just moves because humans are smart. We'll follow along. There's not one person who's going to say, wait, what? I thought we were just talking about the election. Why is his brother-in-law involved? Is he a candidate? Like, that's not going to happen. So don't that rule is like, don't dumb down your messaging in an attempt to include everybody. You talk to people who are as smart as you are. And if other people will catch up because people have FOMO, they don't want to miss out. So if you use a word they don't understand, they'll Google it or they'll ask somebody like, hey, why did she go from talking about the election to talking about her brother-in-law? So you a politician? I'll be like, no, it's 2 separate stories. I'm like, oh, I'm a dummy. Only do what you think is funny, never just what you think they will like, even if it's not funny. Again, that's
huge.
Right. You do you. And let everybody else catch up. And here's the most important one. This is number 1. In my opinion, it should be number 12 because you always build to the big finish, but he started big. If you can be yourself on stage, nobody else can be you, and you have the law of supply and demand covered. That gives me chills. So as long as you are being authentically yourself and sharing what's true to you, nobody else can do that. So you could be talking to a room of 10 real estate agents or Subway franchise owners or politicians, and you could be giving them all the same lessons. And all the politicians could be of the same political party, right? They could all be have the same attitudes about policy and the future. And the sandwich makers could all make the same meatball sub and the real estate agents are all selling single family suburb homes. But if there's 12 of each in the room, you're going to get 12 different versions of the same story. Politician A wants to have lower taxes because a family with 3 kids can't afford to buy enough groceries every month for their kids. Politician B wants lower taxes because he thinks that we're just paying government's too big, right? All the same message. You've told them all how to deliver it, but every single one of them it's going to be 5% different. And that's all that matters.
Is that the conversation that you have with people that approach you about wanting to start a podcast? Because I know a lot of times people will think, well, there's so many podcasts and it's an oversaturated business, which I don't think it is yet at all.
Not
I think
even
there's
close.
Still plenty of room for all of us, YouTube as well. So what do you say to people? Somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, Jeff, I want to start this podcast. I keep seeing you on LinkedIn. You've got my attention. What do I do next?
Let me clear something up.
My fear is
nobody is seeing me on LinkedIn. I'm trying.
That's not possible. Your stuff is so good. How are you not one of the 300 this year? Like, doesn't LinkedIn pick their favorite 300?
I'm not one of them.
You're such a your stuff is so good. And if you don't want to follow you on LinkedIn, how do people get to be a part of your newsletter? Because I know you do a weekly newsletter too. How do I sign up for that?
I don't really know. I think there's a link at tentwentytwo.com. But yeah, the LinkedIn thing is so frustrating because I take it personally. Like, I'll write something, I'll go, this is the one that's going to get traction. And then I'll look at it 4 hours later and 6 people have looked at it. And one of them is you. One of them is like Callie. Like 4 of the people are all the same people. And then there's like 2 strangers.
Sucks. Because it's so good. Like, the value that you were sharing with people is so freaking good. I'm like, every time I'm like, oh God, yes. Like, that's why I don't even write on LinkedIn as much. I'm like, because I can't even write as good as Jeff does. I don't have as much to share. Or I do. I'm just like,
maybe that's the secret.
Whatever.
You should try and see what happens. But anyways, to answer your question about what I say to people is I refer to that first rule of comedy, and I'm like, look, whatever the story is, nobody's going to tell it like you. That's number 1. Number 2, I tell people to Google or go to Amazon and just type in children's book about penguins, and 4,000 of them are going to pop up. And I promise you, somebody is writing one right now about Petey the penguin, right? It's like, it exists. It just hasn't been published yet. And when it gets published, there's going to be another one in the pipeline. And every single one of those is going to sell a few copies, right? So don't think that it hasn't been done. There's a statistic. There's a guy, I think his name is Neil Patel. He's a marketing guru. Yeah. And he posted something, and I've recycled this a few times on my LinkedIn, which means nobody's seen it. But he wrote something like, he said, there are, and he writes how many blogs there are in the world, like a gazillion blogs. And there's this, and this is the population. This is the adult population of Earth, which means for every, 8 people, there's 1 blog. Like, the ratio is 8 people to 1 blog or whatever. And then he says, there are this many podcasts in the world, and the number is like 940 to 1, which means we've got a long way to go before even catching up, right, to blogs in terms of content creation. So I tell people that. I also tell people to imagine their audience. And this, I really struggle with this. And I think you and I talked about this when we were on the phone a couple of weeks ago. When you work in radio or any sort of public facing thing, right? Retail or media or whatever, and you're measuring audience size, there's always a number. There's like a minimum number that moves the needle. So when I was working in radio, if our listeners changed by 1,000 people week over week, I didn't even notice. 10,000 people, I probably wouldn't even notice. 50, 60, 70,000 people, now I'm starting to notice, right? If in a population of 5 million, 1% of them starts to move in one way. Is that 1% or 10%? Whatever. But I don't do math. But whatever that number is, that now I'm going, oh, wait a minute. our ratings have gone down by this much. That's 50,000 people. Where did they go? And you try to find out where they went, right? If you sell sandwiches and you sell 300 sandwiches on average a day, and then one day you sell 290, it's probably not even going to show up. If one day you sell 200, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, right? So it's really easy when you get into any sort of content creation to move with those numbers. So to me, if I didn't have thousands of people listening to a podcast, it was a failure. But that's not true. Imagine your audience as bodies in a room. So if you're a person who goes to church, how many people will fit in your church? Is it 500? Okay. If you have 500 podcast listeners, imagine your church being full every single Tuesday when your episode comes out of people who want to listen to your show. That's pretty cool, right? Like, you don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of people. You just need the right people, which goes all the way back to what I was saying at the beginning. Niche. Like, shit show ADHD moms, gazillion of them. Shit show ADHD moms who are trying to create content, still a lot, but we're getting smaller. Shit show ADHD moms who are trying to create content and have challenged themselves to post one time every single day for the first 100 days of 2025. Boom. Now you're a person.
That was very niche down.
Right.
Oh my God.
But now it's a thing. You know what I mean?
This is why people need you, because the way that your brain works, not with just comedy and content, but actually the business side of this, they need a Jeff, honestly, because the way that you present things too, you make actionable steps, and then you can evaluate things in a completely different way than like my brain can. So when people are approaching the podcast world and thinking about getting into this, who is your ideal client? Who are you looking for right now? Who should contact you?
Do you have room on your credit card? Because that's our client. You can afford us, we'll take you. But ideally, it's actually, you know what I'm really excited about? Up until last week, maybe the week before, up until very recently, our typical contracts were, and ask me after this why I feel anxiety saying this out loud right now, because it relates to something you said earlier. Up until 2 weeks ago, our contracts were 6 to 9 months long. People would pay the same amount every month for as long as the contract. And then we would assemble like basically this customized podcast strategy, big blueprint, not overwhelming, but like very detailed kind of go-to-market strategy with the podcast. Last week, we rolled out for the first time ever a no contract way to work with our company, where you basically, you buy in at the beginning to lock in your hosting, your storage, all that, the technical background stuff. And then your first month is more expensive and you get 6 episodes. So your first 6 episodes cost this much. And then from that point on, you just pay for what you create. And I'm so excited about this because our ideal client is excited about continuing to create. And when we had these long contracts, I think there were some people who got a couple months in and they thought, this is too much. I'm not ready for this. I'm overwhelmed. And all of the hugs and love that we tried to send to them in the form of encouragement and work and labor and kindness and support and words of enthusiasm couldn't move them out of that. And I felt bad because we ended up taking money and then they wouldn't be happy with the product, right? This allows anybody to come in and for a few $1,000, you get half a dozen episodes. You're a podcaster. We're still giving you the same white glove service. So it's going to look great, sound great, feel great, check all the boxes. And then my guess is people are going to be so excited. They're going to say, I need another month. And they're going to buy 4 more episodes. And then that's how and it's just kind of a month to month thing with everything else kind of being a la carte. Oh, you need podcast, cover art. We got somebody who can do that, The reason that was causing me anxiety when I said that is because I struggle with making sure that everybody's looking out for everybody. We still have some clients who are under that long form contract. And if they listen to this, they might be like, hey, wait, I'm that person. And part of me is like, don't say anything that might make anybody else feel bad. But the reality is we're adapting to what people want, and that's okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, it is okay. I piecemeal out a lot of the stuff now too, because I understand the pain points that people are going through.
Yeah.
The reason why having your white glove service, I think, is actually worth it is because podcasting can feel like a full-time job beyond the other jobs that you have. Yeah. And when you have like a Jeff and a Callie on your side.
Well, what about you? Aren't you doing this? Why do you keep hyping us up? Aren't you doing it?
I do. Yeah. Okay. But you do it on a bigger scale than I do. I do all of the things, but
just not as good as you. That's why.
No, my goal is to focus more on creating content for myself, and then keeping the clients that I have now.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? I may have for one or two more, but beyond that, I want to focus on growing my brand and the family brand too.
And what are you going to do with that? How's that going to make you rich?
Oh God, Jeff, why do we have to have this conversation now? I love you so much. I don't know. Sponsorships and brand deals and affiliates, right? We have to have our feet and all the things. Is it our feet or no? It's our hands in all the pockets. That is the goal that I want, but I understand what you're going to say to me right now, which is I need something that is consistent money coming in. So yes, I do all the things.
But here's the thing. Okay, so you worked in radio, right, for a long time, for a very successful show in Detroit, and before that, a very successful show in Atlanta, right? So you get it. You know how it works. You know how sponsors' brains work. You know about money and product placement and all of that stuff. That clients need to be happy. So even if you don't have something, keep this in mind. This is not just for you. Yeah, I mean, this pep talk is for you, but it's for anybody who's listening, who doesn't think that they have something that they can monetize. There are companies out there that have budgets that they have to spend. If they don't spend that money, it goes away. And these same companies have also been directed by their bosses. I don't want more boring radio ads, or I don't want bleh. You know what I mean? They have all this other stuff, which is an opportunity for a content creator like yourself to go to someone, right? I'm only going to use Little Caesars as an example because I know you're in Detroit and they're in Detroit. What if you said, hey, I'm going to do a promotion for Little Caesars. Here's my goal for 2025. I want to be sponsored. I want my family to be sponsored. So here's what we're going to do. Actually, take Little Caesars out of it because my brain's farting on that one. There's a woman on TikTok or Instagram, on social media. I believe her username is Will It Waffle. She is a cheerleader, I think, for Ohio State. And all she does is make waffles using those little Dash waffle makers that have the different plates for different holidays and stuff. And that's her gimmick. That's all she does. I promise you, she is making a ton of money from pancake batter companies, the Dash waffle thing, all of that is coming. What's your thing for your family? Why not pitch it before it exists? Why not come up with a mutual success story? So you find out whatever the Will It Waffle thing is. You go to Little Caesars and say, hey, we want to have Caesar Sunday in our house. And we want to live stream our dinner every Sunday night. And for 52 weeks, it'll be Little Caesars pizza, no matter what. Easter, Little Caesars. Somebody's birthday, Little Caesars. We'll put candles in it. And you'll have 52 different videos. 52 and we're going to mic ourselves up and we're going to eat, and it's Caesar Sunday. And here's what else we're going to do. Right. Like,
can you just be my manager, Jeff?
But think of, go,
I'm
just
not kidding.
Go look up. Go. I mean, I'm giving all this advice, and we don't even have a podcast right now. Like one of my mantras going into 2025 is not having a podcast is going to be the equivalent of not having a website.
Yes.
In the next year.
1,000%.
We haven't, we're going to relaunch, but we don't have a podcast. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking about finding somebody who is super
aligns with the brand,
aligns with our family,
aligns with the brand. Yes, and then the family brand,
and then reaching out to that company saying, "Hey, I'm really creative. My wife has experience executing live entertainment events. Our kids are adorable, and we love Little Caesars Pizza. So here's what we propose." We want you to sponsor every episode of our podcast. We're going to do 52 episodes in 2025. We want you to sponsor every single episode. We're going to eat a Little Caesars Pizza every time we record. And that's the gimmick. And it's $2,500 a month. To a company like that they fart that much money and watch it disappear into the air. That allows somebody on their creative team to go, oh my gosh, do you remember producer Rachel? Here's what she's going to do for us. And I
want to live stream it. We're going to live stream it.
Right. You know,
that's perfect.
But all you have to do is just
down. Contact Little Caesars.
We don't have to write it down because this is all recorded, so you can watch it. ChatGPT.
I have to watch. I have to play it back. Dump
the transcript into ChatGPT and say, "How am I going to get rich?"
Write me a pitch email to Little Caesars. Oh, look, there's a spider. We love that for me.
There you go. Pest control.
No, you can never get out of those contracts. I can't promote that. They get you. And then there's like this writing in there that's like, if you cancel, it's going to cost you twice as much.
That's right. You know what? The people who collect our garbage have that same clause. Like we pay like $90 a month or whatever. I don't know what it costs, but there's another company that will come collect our garbage for $45 a month. But in order for us to cancel, we have to pay like a $750 cancellation fee or something.
Yep. It's literally, that's how much it was. We called them and they're like, oh yeah, it's going to cost you $800 to cancel. I was like, what? He's like, did you read the contract? I'm like, no, I just want you to come spray for the spiders. Like,
I think that's going to be illegal soon. So that's good.
It better be. It's insane. I love everything you're doing. Do you have a hard out?
I'm sorry.
What time is your next? Do you have a hard out? What time is your next meeting?
I know. I got nothing. I'm looking. I got nothing today.
Oh my God. Okay. So, because I have more questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of like,
who are some other, before we go on, who are some other Detroit-based companies?
Oh, I'm going to brain fart on that right now. Don't do that to me. I have to Google it. Detroit-based companies what's my niche now? My niche is...
It doesn't matter because how many times, Rachel, this is the pep talk that everybody needs to hear. Rachel, when I worked in radio, Rachel and I both worked on similarly successful shows that probably were close to sold out in annual advertising months before like the commercial would actually air, right? So 75%, 80% of the show, the inventory was gone in December for January, February, March. But every now and again, you get a phone call. The sales manager gets a phone call and they're like, hey, what's up? It's Joe Smith, Toyota. And you're in Detroit, so it wouldn't be Toyota, but Ford. It's Joe Smith, Ford. Yeah. We just came across $250,000 that we'll spend on your radio station, but we got to have a presence on the morning show. And you had to navigate coming up with a creative promotion. And using a car dealer is a bad example. Like it could be it was always the most random, you know what I mean? Like it's like a pest control company where all of a sudden the owner won a scratch off. Yeah.
So General Motors, DTE Energy, Ally Financial, Ford Motor Company, American Axle, Magda International, I don't know that, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, And then there's a bunch of different random things, but and then Little Caesars is on here as well.
Okay,
and
let's use Ally Bank, right? Okay, so Ally Financial, they would call the radio station and you'd be completely sold out, and you would probably have to navigate, walk a fine line, because the morning show host doesn't want more advertising on the show because that's going to dilute the programming content. But the sales manager is going to go to the general manager and say that you suck if you don't find a way to make it happen, because there's $250,000 on the line, and that's big money, right? So you got to negotiate with your morning show host and say, look, I have a promotion idea. And then you have to go back to the sales manager and go, hey, I got my host to agree to it, but this is how we have to do it. It's not going to be in commercials. It's going to be this promotion, and they got to give us this for pricing and blah, blah, blah. And you made it happen, right? Is that okay? All you have to do is do that for yourself.
Why can't I do that? Was there such a disconnect between that and where I'm at now? Why did I not even think about it that way?
Ally Financial, how old are your kids? They're grown, right? They're
12 and they're 13 and 14. They're going to be 13 and 14.
Great. What a perfect age to start learning about financing, budgeting, and whatever, right? So here's what you're going to do. Here's your proposal to Ally Bank. You're going to record a podcast. You're going to do a weekly podcast, right, that they're going to sponsor. And they're going to pay you $2,500 a month to do this podcast. Once a month, one of their financial experts are going to come on your podcast with your kids for 15 minutes to teach them something about budgeting, savings, basic, all the stuff that you should be learning in school about, like what a mortgage is and what happens, what credit card interest is and how it builds up, and compounding savings, and teach them all this stuff, because at the end of the year, in the month of November, your kids are going to run your household budget. They're going to pay your bills. They're going to buy your Thanksgiving food. They're going to buy plane tickets if you got to travel for the holidays, or gas for the car. They're going to make sure that Christmas is covered for anything Santa's not bringing. That's their job. Right, I know. And Ally is going to coach them, right? Ally has 10 months, 10 lessons that now not only are those lessons, right, for your kids, but now they have pieces of content of their experts talking to a 12 and 13-year-old about, hey, you're going to get your own credit card, but here's what you need to know. At the end of every month, you got to pay it off, because if you don't, that $100 becomes 110. And then it'd be, and teach them. Now they've got all these clips that they can put on their website, that they can share. They have social media content. Like, there's your Ally. Just do for yourself what you would do for your sales manager.
I don't know why I had that disconnect. That is so crazy. Like, I literally have goosebumps right now. Yes. I'm like, oh my God, how did that just blow my mind? Why haven't I treated myself as that brand?
I'll take it. Just so you know, I'm going to talk a big game, and then I'm going to go home and not do anything. But
Callie's going to be like, she hears an episode, she's going to be like, really, Jeff?
Right.
Really?
But maybe you and I challenge each other, because what if you took that list of 10 companies that are located, right? You come up with 10 ideas that you would come up with if your sales manager came to you and said, this is a must do. You come up with the idea that you would go pitch to your morning show, that they would say yes to or get very close to a yes to. You come up with those 10 ideas, because then it's good programming, right? Then you do a series every day for 2 weeks where you pitch your idea to those companies publicly on your social media. And you tag them.
Because that's what I was going to say to you, because that's what a lot of people ask me about, is like, how did you get started doing this? I would just do it. I would buy the ticket. I would do the thing. I would do it for free, tag the people who then eventually started saying, hey, can I pay you to come do this thing? So Why did I not parlay that into a bigger brand deal? Oh my God, keep going. Let's keep going.
So that's my challenge for you. And here's what I will challenge myself with. I, for a while, was brainstorming ideas for big brands on the podcast that I think they should do. right? So for example, the guy who runs Delta Airlines, his name is Ed Bastian, super buttoned up, white collar, like as you would imagine the CEO of a Fortune probably 100 company is, definitely Fortune 500. He does a interview podcast, video podcast that's like a beautiful documentary style shop production. You know what I mean? Where they build a set, right? And it's like elaborate, and he interviews, fellow CEOs. Blech, boring. What I proposed on LinkedIn was that he should be interviewed by just a person, right?
Yes.
In coach, sitting in the window seat, and there's interviewers in the aisle seat with a random celebrity in the middle that they never acknowledge.
I love that idea.
And they never acknowledge. So it's the equivalent of like, imagine Ed Bastian sitting in the window seat of coach, dressed in his probably $6,000 suit, right? With his, $1,000 shoes on. He's sitting there in coach like this. Then me on the aisle seat in this t-shirt, like a little bit sweaty, hanging out there and then like in the middle is just somebody like, I don't know, Katy Perry, but we never acknowledge her. She's just sitting there. And the whole time I'm just like, hey, Ed, listen, why is it 45 pounds? Like, why is that the luggage cutoff? Like, where did that come from? Like, why not 40 or why not 50, 45? It just seems weird. Oh, cool. All right. Thanks. He just leaned back. And the whole podcast is like, hey, Ed, who decides on like, why pretzels? Like, why not Cheez-Its? Okay. You just lean back, right? The whole time. And it's a 15-minute. Who wouldn't watch that?
That'd be hilarious.
And it goes viral because the whole time, like, Katy Perry's in there just circling shit in the Sky Mall magazine that she wants for Christmas. And I came up with one like for Waffle House where it's recorded at Waffle. Do you have Waffle Houses in Detroit?
No, but I lived in Atlanta, so I'm very aware.
24-hour restaurant. The staffs are always the most personable, engaging, funniest. I mean, nobody is happier to be at their job than anyone who works at a Waffle House. Like they're all best friends. And then the cool thing is it's super efficient, right? So they have like these codes. Like when you order something, they put the plate, and if they put a piece of cheese in the middle of the plate, that means that you want cheese on your eggs. But if the cheese is off to the side, that means you want cheese on your hash browns. And it's fascinating. Anywho, I thought it would be great. Like Waffle House, it would be called like Tales from the House. And it would just be recorded at a Waffle House, and it would just be rotating Waffle House employees interviewing guests. And then you do it at like 2 a.m.
They also have fascinating stories.
Yes.
Every employee has like the most crazy Waffle House story. Everybody has a Waffle House story.
Right.
So it's almost like the idea of like chicken shop date, where she takes people to different chicken shops. And like, I would love waffle. Like, oh God, I love that idea too. That's amazing. That's brilliant.
So I was coming up with those and posting them. And I will tell you 100% of the time, an employee of the company tagged another employee of the company, without a doubt, every time. If I did that consistently, I started that like 6 months ago. I did it for a week and stopped, or a month. I did it like every Friday and stopped. If I had consistently done that, then I would have every Friday, I would have 26 of those. Like one of those might have turned into something cool. Right. And don't also don't overthink the strategy of your ideas, because there is a podcast, one of the most successful podcasts in the country is an interview show where it's a guy interviewing a celebrity guest. Boring, except they eat hot wings.
Hot wings. Yeah.
And and it's called Hot Ones, and the wings get progressively hotter the longer the interview goes. There's nothing special about the interview. Like, it's not like an old school Barbara Walters gotcha where somebody's going to start crying, or, like political, ooh, I'm going to back you into a corner and get you to admit you're not going to raise taxes. None of that. It's superficial. It's whatever. Oh, you dated Orlando Bloom. What was that like? Who cares? But they're eating spicy wings. You can't. What's your Detroit equivalent of that? That's my point. So the last 10 minutes was all just a pep talk for you. So sorry to everybody who's listening.
No, I think that's good for everybody. I think everybody needs to hear that because as creators, especially, we get overwhelmed with the like, what's next, right? How do we monetize this? How do we make money? How can I do this for the rest of my life? Can a small creator really approach a larger brand?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's the weirdest thing that we think is like, oh, I only have X number of followers. You don't know unless you ask. And if you have the right pitch and you do it the right way, like you said, they have the money to spend. They want UGC, user-generated content. Why not just make the ask?
Here's the way that the pitch needs to go is they're not buying your audience. They're buying your content, right? So that's why you can go to like a Little Caesars and promote a Caesar Sunday pizza dinner idea, right? Because you go to them and you go, look, no, I don't even have a podcast right now. But what I promise is this is my resume. This is content I've created in the past. This is the content that I will deliver to you. If I do it every Sunday, I'll start a Sunday early so we can be 1 week behind. So you now have, how much do you think it costs to produce a TV? You worked in TV. Like a 1 minute crappy TV commercial is probably $100,000, right? So what you're saying is for $2,500 a month, you'll get 4 pieces of entertaining, goofy, silly content. Do with it what you want. It'll cost you $500 each. It's yours. You have the rights to it. They use it. It's more attention to you and your family, so your audience grows. And then you just write an out in and go, look, if I miss the mark on this, we'll put an out at 30 days. So on March 31st, you can tell me this isn't working and we'll walk away. No problem. No.
Okay, here's my next question. Do I pitch that to multiple pizza places? Am I just hyper-focused on the biggest in Detroit? Or do I take that same idea and pitch as many as I want to?
You pitch it to whoever has the budget, and there's a couple of approaches. You can make everybody feel like they're the only ones, right? Or you can say, hey, this is my idea. Like if you did little like Caesar Sundays, kind of like the alliteration there, like that's not really going to work with Pizza Hut Sundays. Stupid. But so like obviously that, but if you were just going to come up with like the Ally Bank idea, I think, why am I telling you how to do that? You got to make everybody feel special, right? So if you're writing it to Ally Bank, you go, hey, this is an idea that a local credit union gave me. And I want my podcast to be bigger than Michigan. So I want to see if you're interested in it before I do it with them. Then you also send an email to your local credit union and go, look, Ally Bank sent this to me. I don't want to be national. I'm all about Michigan.
I'm local.
Right.
I'm local, baby.
So you send it to both and they're both, and the worst case scenario is they both say yes, at which point you say, all right.
My manager, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, then you pick the one you want. I had a conversation with somebody this morning trying to help her with her podcast. Like she doesn't have a podcast, but she does PR for potential podcast guests or something. I forget. And she mentioned she's like, yeah, my client has been a guest on these podcasts and it's worked out really well for them. And I thought, God, I've never really thought about that. Like being a guest on a B2B marketing podcast. So I emailed 3 of them this morning and made in each one is the line. I had 2 people mention your podcast specifically to me in the past 30 days, which made me want to reach out and see if there's some sort of synergy there. If I get all three, great. If I get none, great. But you got to do something to make the people feel special, and only reach out to companies that you would work with, but you got to, is it lying? I don't know. Is it?
No,
is it lying?
I've sat with clients before and I've said, like, let's write out everything that you've touched. What are things in your life that you buy? What do you use? We did that in radio. We had to do that in radio for sales all the time.
Right.
The idea that I didn't think of sitting down and doing that for myself is insane to me. So thank you for lighting that fire.
Yeah.
And then do you, aside from...
By the way, Callie has never had a Little Caesars pizza. So if you get that deal, I need some coupons. Perfect.
I will send you as many pizzas as you want.
Well, wait until you're rich, because I don't need you coming out of pocket for that $7.99.
Well, if you're my manager, you'll get a cut of all of this if you want a piece. Let's talk about that. Do you also consult? Can people hire you to be a consultant?
Yeah. So I'll do whatever people want. Honestly, I just love I don't like sales. So
it's my Achilles heel. I'm trying to get better at it, but I like to be able to say, like, this is what I do and market myself is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And it's going to sound so like egotistical, but I've always been headhunted. People have always come to me. I've never had to flip it and be like, hey, this is what I can do to help fill the gaps that you have in your business or whatever it is. So I'm having a really hard time marketing and selling myself. I'm terrible at it.
We had a company approach us like 4 or 5 months ago, and they sent a cold email, which I rarely respond to. I may have told you this about the phone call, because I kind of started to turn this ship around the time we talked a couple weeks ago, or last month, whatever it was. But they sent an email and they said, hey, we think we can help you sell your business. And the background of our company is, like, we originally started doing mass appeal podcasts to try to sell advertising on them, and realized that what we were really, really good at is coming up with ideas for businesses and people who want to target businesses. I think because of our show business background, we were able to help tell stories in a way that most B2B podcast agencies couldn't, right? I think that's a niche. So this guy said, hey, I think, and we had not had any sales that wasn't like a word of mouth referral type thing. So this guy says, I'll send out a bunch of emails on your behalf, and I promise you in the next 2 weeks, you'll get 5 qualified leads on the phone. Well, it turns out he did. And the 5th person I talked to ended up being our second biggest client of all time. Like, I closed it within a week. So, I mean, I was already like looking at yacht rentals. I'm like, this is 20% of every phone call. I'm just going to do 10 phone calls a month and add 2 new clients. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm already rich. That was the last and then we signed up. So, I mean, I've probably done 50 sales calls in the past 2 or 3 months and have closed 0 additional deals. I studied how to be a salesperson. Didn't I tell you that his line was, I only work with 2 people a month? Was that you?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
His gimmick, not his gimmick, but he had a sales coach. So after I went like 20 or 30 people with no closes, the guy gets on the phone with me. He goes, here's what you need to do. Hey, Rachel, I understand you want a podcast. I'm so glad you're on the phone with me today. I know we got 45 minutes scheduled. I'm going to take about 30 minutes of your time, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about your business, who you are, what your goals are, how you're performing now, where you want to be, the most efficient way to get you there. I want to know what your podcast hopes and dreams are. I just have a ton of questions for you. Usually takes about 30, 40 minutes. At the end of that, I'll let you know if we're a good fit to work together. Now, just so you know, I talk to 5 people a day, 4 days a week. That means I'm talking to between 75 and 80 people a month. On average, we take 2 new clients a month. So it's really, really, we're a really, really exclusive agency, but the only way I can find the right people to work with is by asking you a lot of questions. So are you okay with that approach? And then the mentality is you're supposed to go, yeah. And now I've flipped it. And you're like, ooh, I want to be one of his too. That's not me.
It's not me either.
And so I did that for so long. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I switched it. And now I'm hand picking people off of LinkedIn who have podcasts that I really like. And I'm sending them a note going, hey, are you having a good time doing your podcast? Is it working for you? Are you getting results? If it's not, I can help you make it better. Send me an email and ask me your questions. If it's a quick answer, I'll answer it. If I can help you, I'll tell you and I'll direct you to who I think can. But if I can help you, I'm going to send you an invite for a consultation. I'll listen to your show. I'll take notes. I'll give you those notes. And what I would do if I were you during that consultation, there's a cost for it. If you get to the end of that call and you're like, yeah, none of this was helpful, then you don't have to pay. But I'm convinced that you'll whatever. And in case you're wondering why I'm doing this, I spent 50 hours over the past 2 months on sales calls. It didn't fill my cup. If I spent 50 hours talking about people's podcasts, I would wake up every day invigorated and excited. So this is selfish. So the response to that about 30% of people are writing back, and about half of those have podcast questions, and the other half are saying, this is so refreshing. I'm cool right now, but I'm going to hold on to your info. It's really cool.
And I love that because that's how my brain works too. Like I can't do it for myself. I can't self-analyze. Obviously, I need Jeff to do that for me. But I can look at everybody else's product and completely break it down and audit it and tell you exactly what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And that's I love you for that. That's brilliant because I'm in that same boat of like I can't sell a thing, but I can tell you how I can help you. Like,
right. And so but it just becomes a numbers game. If I find 10 people a day, right, which is not hard to do. If I find 10 podcasters a day and I send 10 of those emails a day, that's 200 people a month, right? That's 600 people per quarter. If 1% of those become development clients, that's 24 new clients in a year. If 10% of them pay me, I don't even have a price yet for a consultation, $500 for a consultation. Like if 10 of those per quarter, that's an extra $5,000 per quarter. And I'm so confident that I'm going to deliver them value. I can't imagine anybody asking for their money back. If they do, I'll happily give it to them because I'm doing what I love and I'm not doing it to make the $500. The only reason I'm charging for the consultation is because I don't want to fill up my calendar and get stiffed again. Right? Like
correct.
So,
that's why I took Calendly off because people were like putting themselves on my calendar and then not showing up. And it was like, I'm done with it. Like you have to contact me if you want one-on-ones with me.
Yeah. So
straight up, that's where I'm at right now.
So to go all the way back to like the very beginning when you were asking about like what radio people should do or what people should do when they are this might be a LinkedIn post that fails. If you find yourself unemployed, why not drill down on what you're really good at, no matter what it is? Fixing airplanes, Subway sandwiches, booking guests for radio shows, whatever. Identify it. And then go on LinkedIn and offer it to people for free, right? In some form. And then offer an enhanced version at a slight upcharge.
I'm going to have I love you so much right now.
The muscle would be, right? That's working the muscle. Like you're working your whatever it is. So if you're a sandwich maker.
Side note, Subway better sponsor you because you've mentioned them like 4 times already.
Okay, I'll use Little Caesars because we're trying to get you a sponsorship.
I love it. I think it's adorable. Like, oh my God, I think he's hungry.
Oh, Callie always thinks it's funny because I use restaurant examples all the time, but I never, ever use restaurants that I go to. And I don't know why. Like I can't remember the last time I was at a Subway. Like
I think it's easy though because it's relatable because everybody knows a Subway, right? So
right. But I always use McDonald's for an example, and I can't remember the last time that I got like maybe I've gone through the drive-thru to get like a Coke, but I can't remember the last time I'm like, oh, I'm going to have lunch and chose fast food and then chose McDonald's. So anywho, but that's what I would do, I guess, if I found myself unemployed is get somebody to help you identify your skills and then offer those skills for free using outreach. Like reach and go put a one-page easy website up, you know? I use a platform called Lead Pages. And Lead Pages has it's super easy to use. There's no like you just pick the template and you can just upload your picture and whatever, and just keep it like less is more. Super simple. So you're a radio talent. You got fired, so you post a picture of you and go, "Hi, my name's Rachel. I used to work at a radio station until I got downsized. Here's what I'm really good at: public speaking." Coaching people. I used to work in production, so I used to have to coach people how to do commercials, commercial writing, engaging writing for audio, and guest booking. I used to have guests on my show, so I'd have to. And people don't know how that interview with Gwen Stefani happened. So you can say, yeah, I helped with guest booking, even if that means you picked up the phone and said hello, and they're like, hey, it's Warner Brothers. We got Gwen Stefani on the line. She's just wrapping up with another radio station. You're up next. And you're like, cool. You put her on hold. Guess what? You just helped with guest booking.
Oh my God. I love you so much.
You know?
How much I'm going to have to pay you after this. I want to wrap it up because I want to talk to you, like literally want to talk to you, like not recording.
Oh God.
How do people get a hold of you? So you're going to figure out what your consultation fee is, because I think you're brilliant. Your mind is incredible. The way that you can think and see things differently. How do people get a hold of you?
Go to, the easiest is tentwentytwo.com, all spelled out, TENTWENTYTWO. Or you can, I am on LinkedIn a lot, or you can just email Jeff at 1022. I still go on LinkedIn like every day, and I'm trying so hard. I even bought like
2025. You will be one of the 300 in 2025.
That's
my goal too. I'm like, I want to be one of the 300. I didn't even know it existed until the other day, because Tim Chiosano, I think, is one of the 300.
Yeah.
Somebody you help launch this podcast, and like, I want to be one of the 300 next year.
But I don't hear. Yeah. The thing with LinkedIn is like I'm having this. Literally, when I changed the approach to sales, right? I'm like so upset. We don't have any money right now, right? Like we're like, oh my gosh, is the business still going to exist in 6 months? Like, and I feel like I failed because as soon as I close that one big deal, I'm like, I am like Jordan Belfort in Wolf of Wall Street. I can sell anything, right? And I could sell ice to Elsa. That's how good of a salesperson I felt like. And then nothing happened. So it was like, I personally felt like a failure. Like I felt like I let Callie down, and I felt like I let my girls down, and it sucked. And then Callie said something to me where she was kind of like, every deal that we've closed is because people have talked to you and gotten excited about your passion and your ability to turn anything into a compelling story. So when you're doing these sales calls, the way that the YouTube sales trainer guru says you should do it, or the person on LinkedIn says you should do it, nobody cares. And also when I don't know what this has nothing to do with anything. So I'll just tell it quicker. Also at the end, and then also based on what that person was charged, what that was our second biggest deal ever. Immediately in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to close 2 of these a month. We're going to be rich. So I moved the needle. And just a week or two ago, I had this kind of epiphany where I'm like, oh my God, number one, I don't have to sell the way they sell because I'm not them. I'm not like a sales bro. It's number one. And then the number two part of that is we're already making 10 times every quarter in development sales than we made in January, right? Like that's how quickly that part of it's grown. So I don't need to make one more record-setting deal every month. That would have been great. All I need is just like 3 normal deals. And it's kind of changed my whole attitude about like my approach and stuff. So I think maybe to make that relatable and give that the past 5 minutes a point. I also think if you're reinventing yourself, sometimes it's important to stop and consider where you were X number of months ago, years ago, however long, and where you are now. And kind of plot that on a graph in your head. And if that graph is going up, you're not failing. Like if you're higher on the mountain today than you were 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 1 week ago, if you're farther up that mountain, then you're succeeding. I think if you're anything like me and probably like you, Rachel, you're probably setting goals that are not unrealistic, but you're setting goals that are really hard for you to accomplish, which pushes the goals that you are accomplishing into the shadows. I don't appreciate the $20 I made because I didn't make the $100 I thought I was going to make. But guess what? You still have $20 more than you had last week. And if you add $20 every week, you're doing okay. So anywho, so
I can talk to you for hours. You're freaking amazing.
Thanks.
You really are. I thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate you. So
I hope
if any of this resonated with people, honestly, reach out to Jeff. If you want to reach out to me, you all know how to do that.